1.7 lakh villages, where water is a very big issue. Drinkable water is a very, very big issue. Bisleri water they have not seen. They don't know what are bisleri waters are. Water filled in bottles probably. And I'm reminded of what the then Prime Minister of Norway advised, because a very famous quote for everybody in 1987 in the United Nations, when he said that economic enterprise must be sustainable, and that applies to every sustainable activity, including water. And he further said, must meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. You cannot exploit the nature to the extent that future generations face a problem in relation to water crisis. And I read a wonderful article in Span long back. The title of the article was that in future, a businessman writes that article, he says, in future people like me will go to jails. He was polluting the water, and then he became environmentalist. And then he said, after I became a kind of environmental freak, I realized that what damage I was doing to the nature and to the water, how much water I was polluting through my carpet industry. And then he writes, how many of us even thought what we are taking from Earth or doing it today, except be sure we're in compliance and keeping with ourselves clean in the routine sense. He said, as far as I'm concerned, I'm with a great feeling of what you can call it guilt. Every ecosystem on Earth is on decline, he said. There is a grave crisis. It is not the funeral mass to the grave if somebody doesn't do something to reverse the deadly decline. He further went on, the business and the industry and the largest and the wealthiest, most powerful, most progressive institutions on Earth and the ones doing the most damage must take the lead. Otherwise, we are in deep crisis. Otherwise, who takes that lead? And then he says, don't you feel sustainability is a solution or a search for a problem? Let us start worrying about if nothing we can do we prevent the world from getting warmer and more turbulent with coastal flooding and new disease? Who will do it? Ultimately, only everyone collectively can make a big difference to save the species from itself, to save the species from nobody else but you. Otherwise, this phrase is very important within quotes, otherwise the birth of death has already taken place and the death of birth is imminent. I think this is very, very important. If we keep exploiting the environment for a very, very long time, the death of birth has already taken place. And friends, I do not want to take much time. The answer for this is that we should be very serious about it. The answer is not tomorrow. Answer is today, maybe now, when we are discussing all these things. Thank you very much. Once you welcome all once again.
Thank you, sir, for the kind words. May I now request our Dean, Robert Klonoff, to just give you a background to this conference. Dean Klonoff.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here, and I especially appreciate the flowers, because in the United States, only opera singers and violinists get flowers. So I'm delighted that in this country, you recognize academics to be in the same category. This is my third trip to the law school, and I very much love this school. I loved it from the first moment I came here 5 years ago, and soon after meeting with the Vice Chancellor, who I'll say more about in a minute, who I deeply respect, our school entered into a memorandum of understanding with this law school, and this conference is the culmination of that memorandum of understanding. So it's really gratifying for me to see everything come together and to have a conference of this magnitude. I first want to thank Navneet, who's been recognized already. I am so proud of Navneet. He was an LLM student at Lewis and Clark, and I got to know him there, and I knew he was going to go on and do great things, and it's so gratifying to see him now already emerging as a leader in the academy in the area of environmental law. So I want to again recognize Navneet and thank him. I also want to recognize the Vice Chancellor. I've traveled all around this country. I've met with many Vice Chancellors. And your Vice Chancellor is really a giant in legal education. He is one of the premier people. And I think I can say fairly in this family that when I visited Hyderabad, I also kept hearing about your Vice Chancellor and how much they missed him at Hyderabad. He did great things for that school, and he's doing remarkable things for this school. And I was so pleased to learn earlier this week that he's going to be staying on for another 5-year term. And I think as well, this conference represents the Vice Chancellor's vision, because he and I talked about this from the very first time we met, and it was so wonderful to welcome him several months ago to Portland to see our school as well. Next, I want to recognize Lucy Brem of Lewis and Clark, who really is the person who did all the work behind the scenes. I get to stand up and claim all of the credit, but really the credit goes to Lucy, who has spent months and months putting this together. She's the one who invited the speakers, who put together the speaker list, who took care of all of the arrangements, some of which were a little dicey. One of our faculty, Erin Ryan, got her visa the day before her plane left for India. So we cut it a little close, but all of these arrangements couldn't have been possible without Lucy. So I want to recognize her for her role today. And I want to thank all of our speakers who are here from throughout the world to come this far to be part of this conference. And the Vice Chancellor has mentioned all of our speakers, and I won't go through the list again. But for each of you, thank you for coming, and thank you for educating this community, and we're so proud to have you here. And I too want to give recognition. I want to single out two of the giants who are here today. First, MC, who the Vice Chancellor mentioned before, who is a very, very good friend. I've had the honor of visiting him twice in Dehradun and spending several days each time with him and his family and seeing his wonderful environmental ashram. There's nothing else like it in the world. As the Vice Chancellor said, there's nobody who's done more for the environment in India than MC Mehta. He is a true giant. He's written a wonderful treatise, and we're so proud that he could come today, so please recognize him. And also my friend Sanjay, who I've also had this great pleasure of spending a lot of time with. He runs the premier environmental defense firm in this country, and we now have one of our Lewis and Clark students who's just arrived is going to be working for Sanjay, and we've had wonderful experiences with our students working in this absolutely first-rate environmental firm. So I want to recognize and thank Sanjay as well. And thank you for all of the students who are here today, and if any of you want to talk to me about law in the United States or LLM programs or anything else, please feel free to talk to me at a break, or we can make time during this conference as well. And I want to welcome all of you and thank you for coming. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean Klonoff. May I now request our chief guest, Justice Swatanter Kumar, to please deliver the keynote address. Sir, please.
Good morning to all of you. Mr. Dr. Ranbir Singh, the Vice Chancellor of this university, Dean Robert Klonoff, the respected faculty members of the university, staff, foreign delegates from different parts of the world, the other distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen, and more particularly, the students. Well, this morning I come here to share some of my thoughts with you relating to environment, more particularly with regard to water problems. Firstly, I would share what Dr. Singh had to say was that you are a young institute, but certain enough, there is no bar in a young being brilliant, and you have proved the thought that you are one of them. Therefore, my congratulations to the faculty members, the Vice Chancellor, and the students of this institution to have brought good names within such a short span. Well, I have a reason for being a little more elated about this particular performance of this institution, because I happen to be the organizer for laying down the foundation stone of this building and this institution. So I personally take a great pride in saying that well done and keep doing it. Second thought to which I really again concur is what Dr. Singh said, and it is more than often now repeated, that the next world war shall be in relation to water. But on the other hand, water has spread through to such depths in our society that indispensability becomes an understatement. In Hinduism, water of river Ganges is considered to be poised with the power to wash away the sins of one's past and present lives. In Islam, water of Jamijam, well in Makkah, is supposed to be contemporary miracle. Never having gone dry despite millions of liters of water attributed to the well consumed every year. It is associated with faith and in religion. In Christianity, during purification, holy water is sprinkled over the newborn for protection against sins and evils. Since times immemorial, as is being through these instances, water has been considered to be the source of life. And scientifically as well, it has been proved to be so. It is so intricately and interlinked with our traditions, culture and value system that we somehow fail to realize, acknowledge and appreciate the role it plays in our lives. Such conferences, while giving us a global perspective on issues, demands, needs and most importantly, solution to the problems relating to water, would also go a long way in, as I just mentioned, realizing, acknowledging and appreciating its role. Think that the two minds, USA, India professors, Singh and all, get together and think of conference. That's what I mean, that when you exchange ideas, it can create wonders. After all, there is a reason why Leonardo da Vinci, the famous Italian polymath, had once said, and I quote, "Water is the driving force of all nature." It gives me immense pleasure to be part of this international conference on realizing of the goal of water for life, lessons from around the world. Let us take a moment to understand this topic. The expression water for life is of a very wide connotation, encompassing within itself the concept of utilization, what we have, while remedying what we will have. In other words, sustainable utilization of water resources is what we intend to discuss in the process. Remedy through this conference, which in itself reminds me of a very interesting theory of the famous philosopher Jimmy Bentham, who while propounding the theory of utilitarianism, had opined that clash or exchange of ideas, as is envisaged in this conference, leads to better ideas and greater solutions. Let us believe that this gathering will help achieve better ideas and get the better solutions towards the noble cause of sustaining water. The little experience that I have in this field of environment and its protection and adjudication thereto, I have come to realize that it is in fact an indivisible part of sustenance and well-being of a nation and its citizens. It is almost sorrowful to notice that the kind of matters that come up for adjudication, the causes they seek to achieve, and issues they intertwine with themselves, the situation is the most serious with water pollution levels and the contamination of water, which has spread through all the way through to ever depleting water levels and groundwater. Some of the cases that have been drawing the attention of various are the severely polluted major rivers of nation, including Yamuna and Satluj, the alarming decline in the groundwater levels in and around the capital, the effects of polluting industries discharging harmful effluents in tributaries in the state of Punjab, having devastating consequences on the health of the citizens, a number of cases in which development and construction around the river bank has led to decreased flow of river, so much so that in some cases the course of river have even been altered and changed. I would like to mention to you a very serious matter which recently the tribunal dealt with in Punjab. Because of industries of dyeing and electroplating being freely discharged on the ground or into the small streams, the underground water got so toxic that huge number of people were reported to be getting ill with skin diseases, lungs, cancer, and it was, and I'm very happy to note that it was the High Court of Punjab and Haryana which suo motu took an action on a report in the newspaper that the disease was increasing by a tremendous pace and is likely to affect two most important towns, that is the Amritsar and Ludhiana in Punjab, to a very large extent. And we constituted a specialized team of doctors from all over the country to submit a report to us now as to the extent of pollution, extent to which the underground water is being consumed and having direct nexus to the illnesses specified like cancer, skin diseases and lung diseases arising out of toxic and contamination of the underground water. Therefore, water is a concern without which you can't live, and if it is contaminated, results are disastrous. There are only some of the instances which have been coming up, and others are none better. What these issues signify is that despite us as a race having developed equipped with the better technology, and most importantly to stand more aware of exhaustive nature as well as the importance of clean environment, we still are having to face problems in regard to depleting sources as well as contamination, which is at the brink of causing enormous harm to the living beings. All around the globe, the endemic water shortage and crisis of clean water is but evident through some of the statistics that are shown in the WHO survey of 2000, which shows that the percentage of contaminated water in Africa, Asia, and Latin America is 35%, 22%, and 20% respectively. What is even more alarming is that 12 African countries are considered to be in a water-stretched situation. Further 10 African countries will be stressed by 2025. 1.1 billion people, or 2/3 Africans' population, India at current rate population growth, India will have the largest number of water-deprived persons in the world in the next 25 years. It is estimated that by the year 2050, half of India's population will be living in urban areas and will face acute water problem. These are shocking facts, but we must not forget that in the wake of these issues, a duty is cast upon us to conserve and make available at the same time clean water, not just for us, but for future generations too. This duty, in fact, finds itself in the form of fundamental rights under Article 21 of the Constitution of India. The former Secretary General of UK, Kofi Annan, had very eloquently put, access to safe water is a fundamental human need and therefore a basic human right. The NGT is a specialized body equipped with the necessary expertise to handle environmental disputes involving multidisciplinary issues. The tribunal is not bound by the procedures of the court, but shall be guided by principles of natural justice. However, the legislature and the adjudicatory aspects of environmental law, faction especially relating to water, shall develop with time and are adequately in place. We have the Water Pollution Act, more particularly dealing with the water issues, in addition to the Environmental Act. The answer lies with us. What needs to be done is to increase public awareness, adopt a more pragmatic and holistic approach, and most importantly, act in furtherance of this approach. Some of these approaches that might be helpful in achieving the goal of sustainable water might be rain harvesting. With the passage of time and ever-growing needs of population, rainwater harvesting looks like a positively reinforcing method to cut down on the usage of water while virtually surviving on sufficient water harvested by oneself. Interlinking of rivers, more particularly in reference to India. There is an inherent imbalance in distribution of water around the world. In our country itself, we have Rajasthan on the one hand, which faces severe water shortage every year, and Assam on the other, where floods are a common phenomenon. Interlinking of rivers thus could solve the logistically better allocate water from one part to another. For instance, an area which faces droughts can be allocated water from an area which is flooded often, thereby solving a twofold issue. Stopping wastage. Of all the measures that we would suggest and incorporate, this is paramount of importance. Thank God men cannot fly and lay waste sky as well as earth, said Henry David Thoreau. The American author, what he encapsulated, when was that men in haste or otherwise tend to forget that wastage, be it of water or even of time, inflicts harm not only on those who are directly related but also future generations. International cooperation and global planning. Since acute problem faces the whole world at large, we must assimilate the good practices of other countries in order to improve the overall status of the world in relation to water and its quality. For instance, wastewater can be recycled and reused for agriculture. Urban wastewater that is treated adequately can be recycled into rivers where it can be reused downstream. Nations which reclaim the highest percentage of their wastewater include Israel, Spain, Australia, Japan, Middle East nations, Mexico, Latin America, and US states of Florida and California. Reclaimed water is used for agriculture and irrigation. This practice could be inculcated by other countries for better utilization of wastewater. Another important issue that needs to be addressed is the balance that needs to be struck between the development and utilization of water, or environment generally. Development and environment needs to be seen in complementary and not in agnostic manner. After all, if there is no earth left, where will development take place? Inclusive development would not be possible without emphasis on the environmental protections. Today, when the world is facing the harmful consequences of global warming and depletion of resources, environmental conversation has become a topic of global significance. The matter is of paramount relevance in a developing economy like ours, as environment degradation drastically offsets improvements achieved by economic prosperity, apart from having serious implications for disruptive justice. Today, many people realize that it is not about environment versus economy, not a trade-off between unemployment and pollution, and certainly not about picking one over the other. In short, we cannot choose between environment and economy. We need both, and this is our challenge, to create the conditions so that both can thrive. The realization is at heart of an emerging school of environmentalism, often encapsulated by terms green economy. It reflects a growing recognition that, on the one hand, the challenge of sustainability rests almost entirely in getting the economy right. Putting a price on carbon, valuing natural capital, and ending reverse subsidies, among other things, are vital to the meaningful environment reform. And on the other hand, if we wish to create a sustainable economy, we must pay more attention to environment. Against a backdrop of climate change, resource scarcity, the massive loss of biodiversity, and a variety of other environmental issues, business as usual is increasingly risky, and water is at the center of all this. I would certainly refer to a very famous saying of an author, and I quote, "Only when the last river has been polluted, and the last tree has been cut, and the last fish have been caught, will we realize we cannot eat honey." On that note, let's hope that this conference and our efforts thereof belie the apprehension that the next world war shall be on water. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir, for the enlightening words. I'm sure it will encourage all of us present in this hall to work on these issues in future. Before we conclude, let me especially thank our Vice Chancellor, Professor Ranbir Singh, for giving us the resources and the encouragement to organize events like these. Dean Klonoff for making this possible. I'm sure it will be a great conference which will be really helpful for the students, for those of you who can actually attend, and the delegates. Thank you very much for the senior academicians who come from all parts of the world to attend this conference. I'm sure it will be a very fruitful exercise. My senior colleagues from National University Delhi, thank you for taking time off from the classes and your other important stuff and attending this session. The students, I know you have your exams, and but I'm sure you'll benefit if you get to attend these sessions. So thank you very much for coming. We'll break for high tea, and then we could just conclude the session. Thank you very much.